Welcome to the second video in our series on unconscious bias. During the next few minutes, we will review what unconscious bias is and offer suggestions for how to recognize and manage our biases. Every day we make many decisions without always understanding the process of how we make them. Many factors influence how and why our brains choose a given path. Research indicates that we process millions of pieces of information in our daily lives. Our brains create shortcuts and use our accumulated knowledge to assess situations quickly and act appropriately. Unconscious bias refers to an almost instant bias of which we are unaware, one that occurs beyond our control. Unconscious bias happens automatically and is triggered when our brains make quick judgments and assessments of people and situations, influenced by our background, cultural environment, and personal experiences. We can neither eliminate our biases completely nor cleanse our brains of the memories that feed bias. However, we can take 3 easy steps to recognize and manage our biases to become more aware of how they influence us, our decisions, and our interactions with others. To act, we must first recognize where and how biases manifest. One way to attain a deeper understanding of the concept of bias and receive a real-time assessment at this point in your journey to recognize and manage your biases is to visit Project Implicit at implicit.harvard.edu. Based on individual and collaborative research on the topic of bias for over 20 years across 4 universities, Project Implicit gives interested parties the opportunity to gauge their biases and offers 14 different implicit attitude tests. These tests assess attitudes about many areas including gender, race, age, weight, and disability. Completing some of these quick assessments is a good way to obtain a baseline of where your biases might exist and where to focus your attention. Another way to recognize and manage bias is to examine our language. The way we express ourselves through words can reveal a lot about our biases and help us consider how we manage them. We can examine language in several ways: what we say, how we say it, and to whom we say it. As we examine our language, we can ask ourselves, how consistent are we? Under what circumstances do we self-censor? When and why does inconsistency or self-censorship happen? Now that we are more attuned to unconscious bias, let's look at some common phrases and see if we can recognize bias in them. Guys, we need to stay late today to finish this project. Have you met the new kid on my team? What do you see? Unless the first group being addressed is entirely male and the new hire is a teenage prodigy, both statements pose a problem. Recognizing that we do well to examine how what we say can have an impact on the attitudes and behaviors of those around us over time, let's challenge ourselves to look for more neutral alternatives, such as, "Team, we need to stay late today to finish this project." Have you met the new young person, man, lady, on my team? Subtle, yet more inclusive. As we take time to look at our everyday communication, we can look for ways to eliminate gender or age-biased language. A final area of unconscious bias to consider is confirmational behavior. Often we make decisions that confirm what we already believe. Confirmational behavior is unconscious and has both positive and negative implications. For example, to what degree do you have a belief that women are more nurturing and kind than men? Based on your response, how would you react to a woman who did not display nurturing and kind attributes or behaviors? Or imagine that you are interviewing candidates for a role on your team. You are outgoing and talkative. How will you respond to a candidate who is more quiet and reserved? If you answered honestly, you might have identified for yourself how bias can occur in our behavior and have unintended but negative consequences on others. As you consider these examples and other inputs that help us to identify bias, be aware of moments when you are uncomfortable or start to feel defensive, as those clues can alert you when your biases might be impacting you and others around you. As this training has progressed, we've seen that taking assessments, examining language patterns, and acknowledging confirmational behaviors provide different means to recognize and manage bias in our lives. Using each in turn helps us create a positive and inclusive work environment that supports the performance of each associate. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to access other resources at Relationships Matter Now and Constant Organizational Development for more information and support.